Welcome to Hot Takes, brought to you by 50cupstea.com, where united we sip, discuss, and learn. Join us as we dive into the hottest takes on culture, business trends, and the threads that bind us. Get ready for inspiring stories, candid conversations, and a fresh perspective on living a healthy, fulfilled life. Grab your cup and tune in. Let's get started.
Hello, everybody. It is with a heavy heart. It is with a heavy heart that today will be the last 50 Cups hot take that we ever do. So that's kind of the sad news, but there's good news as well. And
yeah,
Jim,
we're going to continue with hot takes. It's just going to be under a different brand. I have a multiple brand entity in Jim Baker, and we're going to go with Sumus
I like that.
Development Group going forward, which is our advisory investment business. But yeah, it's a great run. As you can see, there's no tea today.
There was no tea. It was kind of a tip-off.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be rude and ask, but
you know, in past podcasts, if you have watched, you'll know that we ventured into the retail world a few years ago.
yes,
We bought a coffee shop,
Mm-hmm.
which we thought was in a great location, right in front of a major university, NC State. And when the kids were in school, they loved coffee, and they really loved coffee. They didn't really love tea too much.
Mm-hmm.
But we sold a lot of coffee and we sold some tea. But it's hard to make a sustainable profit in a beverage shop,
Right.
if you're not serving alcohol, especially, and we didn't. And also just due to the dynamic of the school calendar, where thank God I'm not paying tuition anymore, but nobody seems to go to school anymore.
Right.
They're off all the time.
Right.
It's fall break, winter break, in between Christmas and January, big break. Get out of school earlier and earlier now. I think the end of April. When I was in school, we ended in mid part of May.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there's a lot of time where the kids are just simply off and traffic is down. And so I decided to double down during that time and then open up another shop that wasn't near a university, but it was probably 2 miles away in another shopping center. And we opened. People still loved coffee over tea, but we were getting there. We were slowly moving in the right direction. And then the landlord, there was a bagel shop that moved out 3 doors down from me. And the landlord told me I'd be thrilled with the new business that was coming in. And I'm thinking it's going to be a restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
Like a nighttime restaurant type of thing, lunch thing. And there's this coffee shop called Drift Coffee.
Put in right next
And they're
to you.
really big on the coast of North Carolina.
Oh, yes.
And everybody, especially in that area of Raleigh, pretty much vacations down in the area where Drift is
Yes.
every summer.
Yes.
And lo and behold, Drift Coffee's coming in.
Oh, man.
And she said to me, "Why aren't you happy?" I said, "Because everybody that's living full-time in Raleigh vacations down with the drift land of the eastern part of North Carolina, and they're going to bring back their summer memories, and they're going to go to Drift every day. Plus, it's a great place."
Right.
So I said, basically, you just wiped me out.
Right.
So I got out of the entire retail world. I sold the NC State location, and then I was able to sublease to Boba Pop Tea, which is more of what I would call a bubbly, sweet tea concept.
Okay.
That's Asian, and I think they're doing okay, by the way, because they have a nighttime crowd. Usually it's more of a dessert thing from 6 to 11 o'clock at night, so it's not really affecting Drift too much, and vice versa. Drift's not really affecting them too much. So the good news is I was able to transition out of the retail world without taking a total massive hit to my bank account, although I did lose money. Then I thought, well, we're just going to go online, and we'll have this great organic online tea presence, and we'll go ahead and set the world on fire in that regard as well. Well, if you've ever done a online search of tea, there is 1 trillion places.
Oh, no.
You can get your tea, and the big gorilla is Amazon, and you can get organic. You can get anything you want on Amazon.
Sure can.
And so we gave it a shot, for about 1.5 years. We also thought our Hot Takes podcast would draw multiple tea drinkers to our site, and even the guests have not ventured to our site.
You should put it up on TV. You should force feed them like at the airport. Oh, my.
So at the end of the day,
probably a good
meaning
decision.
me, since I'm the only person left in the company, decided it was time to move on.
Yeah, that's good.
I shut down the website. I do have some product left, and we'll donate the product, or I'll just drink it until it's
No
gone.
big closeout sale?
No big closeout
okay.
sale. But it's been a great run. I gave it a shot.
Yeah.
I always thought I wanted to be in retail as a kind of a fun thing. And I realized that I can't stay in retail. And I should have known better because I don't even like going to retail stores myself as a consumer. So why would I want to be an owner in that regard? But as with anything in life, you live, you experience it, and you learn, and then you move on. If doesn't work out, and you learn from it. And so the good news is we're going to continue with the podcast because I have a lot of fun doing that.
Great.
And we're just going to pivot to another LLC that I have.
Okay.
Which may be more in line with what we're trying to do anyhow, which is, learning from other folks with their life and their business experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a little bit more aligned with what we're doing at Sumus, compared to what we were doing at 50 Cups regarding the podcast. So
that's great. I think you wrote a book about, when things aren't going your way, the adventure begins, something like that.
That's right.
So,
the adventure begins.
But the
when
adventure
the
is
plan
over
falls
with
apart.
now with 50 Cups. But
slightly better sales than the tea sales with the book. But yes.
Yes.
Slightly.
Great.
Not a lot.
Well, a producer can get us a lot of views. He told us that. So.
Yeah. So, but we're going to continue. Good. Don't everybody go crazy. We're not leaving for good, but we're just moving on.
Great. Well, I know we have a lot of topics you would like to talk about, and one may have been the AI, just to bring it up. A lot of people go to AI now and ask us questions about, well, I have a tea shop, and it's located across from the college, and the AI will come back and tell you if it's a good idea or not.
Exactly.
But it is a big issue. In fact, there was a big lawsuit. Some people came forward, right, and sued Google, YouTube, Facebook, and lo and behold, they actually won the case.
This is weird. We're pivoting away from AI to talk about social media right now.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It was a terrible segue on my part.
Well, it's okay because I think, losing 50 cups, I think is set you back a little bit.
It did. It rattled me. It did, especially when you brought up the podcast.
Yeah, and I can't talk about my hair because I have none, but it's like you got a little long in the...
Yeah, I go in for yes. With a little I have left, it's out of control right now. But geez, I feel so insecure on this podcast. I don't know why. For a minute, I thought I was going to say, "Well, it was nice working with you." But anyway, let's talk about, because I think this is a big deal. We've seen this before, haven't we? I mean, with opioids, because of addiction, and we found out the pharmaceutical companies had pill that wasn't addictive, and yet they sold the addictive one, cigarettes, that type of thing. And that's kind of what they came forward with in their lawsuit, is saying YouTube, Facebook, these folks know this is addictive, and therefore they should be punished. And the jury said, yeah. What's your take?
It's a good point on the opioid thing, although they were pretty late to the game.
Yes.
In stopping that. But then before that, you had the cigarette companies.
Absolutely.
Who basically all the states ended up suing them, and they got a giant windfall, with fines and penalties and everything else, and helped fund their budgets for a period of time. So I do think this is the next wave, because a lot of these companies obviously have tons and tons of money. They've made tons and tons of profit. And I think they're going to reap some of those benefits through these lawsuits down the road. I think that eventually the states, these individuals, groups have sued Google, YouTube, and Meta at this point in time. But I think it's eventually the states are going to start suing also.
And they're going to smell the money. Yeah, they smell the money. How do they do that, though? Because this is, unlike the opioids or even the cigarettes, you had an actual chemical that physically made you addictive to their product. And they knew about it and sold it knowing that, it was a pretty secure commodity to sell. How did they make that sell with Facebook and YouTube? I mean, it obviously went over with the jury.
Yeah, I mean, the Meta case was in New Mexico, and then the Google YouTube one was in Google YouTube one was in California, and similar things. I think the New Mexico one was set up through law enforcement, I believe the FBI, who basically they posed as kids and were online, and they were looking at content, and I guess just to simplify it, there was no warning, there was no blocking, there was no deleting or prohibiting these individuals from being able to look at this content. And and then they had some whistleblowers, I think in all three companies, that have come forward saying, yes, it's the practice of the company, not to deliberately do it, but we don't have enough safeguards, in place to, prevent, a minor, for example, from being able to see content they shouldn't be seeing. And also, I think more importantly, and we've seen documentaries about this, we've read books about it. For whatever reason, this technology is wildly addictive. It's dopamine, and and especially for kids, and it's harmful. And obviously, the suicide rates in this country have skyrocketed, especially in young people, and over the last 20, 30 years, 15 years or so. And so I think there's a lot of merit to it. And I guess at the end of the day, because Meta didn't do anything, and or YouTube, Google didn't do anything, they got punished. And I think the Meta fine was $350 million. I think the YouTube Google one was less, but
I think
still,
it was about 6 or so. But even so,
yeah.
But that was my next question, actually, because they're billions. I mean, they're making billions and billions of dollars. It's
Printing
really
money.
kind of a
Printing money. It's nothing.
It's nothing to them.
Right.
So where do you see this going? You mentioned states, and that would be something if the government decided that's some free money for us if we can.
They'll probably lose
win.
a couple more court cases, and then the states will get involved, and then eventually, just like the opioid and the cigarette companies, there'll be a settlement, and hundreds of $millions will be a money grab for all the states. The social media companies will be forced to prohibit and put warning labels on, put all these safeguards in place, just like you see in a cigarette pack right now. And, with opioids now, you can't just go, you can only get a prescription, obviously, but even with the over-the-counter stuff that can be turned into meth. I mean, you go to Walgreens, for example, and you got to get a little card, and then you got to go behind to the pharmacist and ask the pharmacist to go get you the allergy pills. You got to show them an ID and everything else. So I think whatever they're going to do for the social media world, that's what's going to happen. And then there'll be billions and billions of dollars that'll go to the states. But they'll still operate. They'll still be able to do what they're going to do. And I think ultimately it's going to be up to the parents and to legislatures to probably put laws in place saying, I wouldn't be surprised, that cell phones, from a social media perspective, kids will be prohibited from using them until they're a certain age.
That actually would be a good idea. It would be nice if educators would also embrace the traditional learning away from the computers and all of that as well. I think it's a whole different group of kids growing up, and there's a lot of problems, and I think a lot of it is associated with that. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. If I had a computer right now, I'd look up what to do on AI, Jim, and see what they would suggest. Although I bet they're biased. I bet the AI, whoever this God is behind this screen, is biased, which is another subject, if you don't mind me segueing into it, is this is scary stuff to me. Do you think it's scary stuff? Because it's going to impact us like nothing has, probably in the history of mankind. That's the way I see it. I don't think I'm overreacting. What say you?
So why are you scared of it?
I just think it's going to destroy jobs. I think it's also, based on what I've read, it is now producing life itself. It is writing its own programs. And I think that's incredibly dangerous. And because we've been dumbed down while this thing is certainly smarter than the combined minds of all of us, where does it end up? Where do we go from here? And if you want to get into conspiracies, some might even say it is the Antichrist in the long run. And I've heard people talk about that. That's how much fear there is about it. But we've been afraid of everything that's been unknown, right? So are we overreacting?
Good question. Obviously, we probably don't remember, but because we've been living with the internet for the last 30 plus years. But what was that like? Back then, I remember. You had the AOLs of the world, and you could go online, and the screen was kind of weird looking, and it was all black and white initially. Then it was kind of this weird color. Then email got kicked in, and I remember having a company at one point in time and mandating, so dumb I was, mandating everybody from now on, we're not using the phones anymore. We're going to email everybody.
Right.
And then you go like all in, and then
Right.
you back off.
Right.
Right. And I'm wondering, we seem to be like all in on AI right now. And my guess is we'll back off and we won't go back to the extreme of no AI, but AI will find its place. And I'm hoping that place is as a tool to help businesses, help individuals just simply be more efficient and more knowledgeable.
Yeah, well, I think that's happened. I would hope that is already taking place. There was a funny video, and it had to do with a woman trying to talk to a real person on the phone, very much like the times you're stuck on a phone with one of your unhappy endings with one of these folks, right?
Right.
Yeah. And initially it's a really clear, obvious computer talking to you, and then you're hitting zero, you're yelling, I want a real person. Please give me a real person. And they ship her to another person. It sounds like a real person, Jim. And they have a discussion. They argue. She questions to the point where the computer eventually has to say, yes, I will find her. I'm not a real person. That's how good it is, Jim. Now, if they can do that, what about all those office people, for instance, and all of those jobs out there that can now be performed by AI quite easily and already are starting to? What happens?
Well, so let's look at the positives.
Okay.
So, and I think I've experienced this actually because we've been complaining for years with companies offshoring their customer service. So if you have Verizon, for example, a phone company, and you got a problem, you're probably talking to somebody in a different country, right? Because they did that to save money, obviously, cheaper labor, they had the technology to be able to do it, and so on and so forth. But I personally had a hard time sometimes understanding, not because of necessarily some of it was the accents.
Are pretty
a lot of
thick
it was
sometimes.
the bad headphone quality that the headsets that they had. You could barely hear them,
Right.
you know? But I've noticed lately, and I'm not one to call customer service, but if I had to do it recently, and I remember, wow, I'm probably talking to a computer and there's probably a human that's there, but I can understand now, right? I can hear it. I mean, so if it's done appropriately as a tool, where you're still talking to somebody, let's say in India, for example, they're there, but the computers and artificial intelligence is transcribing. They're still managing the artificial intelligent response, but the human, in this case, on the other end, can understand what's going on and hopefully get that problem solved. Right. And then if the AI can't solve it, then that person's behind them, being able to do it. Now, the question is, if the call center has 200 people right now, can they get away with 100 people down the road? Right. I don't think you could ever go to zero. So I do think there's going to have to be a human element there, and certainly some of those jobs might be lost. But just looking at it from an AI search through ChatGPT, it's basically they predict 3 categories of jobs, potentially being lost over time. And to your point, it is that administrator or that paralegal, somebody who's doing, researching content, things like that, writing. I think those positions, may be, in jeopardy down the road.
I did look a little bit, and they were talking about office and administrative, and they were talking even legal and all of that. But they also mentioned that with robotics, for instance, and that whole era, and AI now, even in manufacturing, that it seems like virtually anything is a possibility where you would see humans working with AI, which is a wonderful thing, but you see this huge reduction in jobs available to people. And the question then becomes, what do those people do? How do you train yourself?
Well, as you know, and we talked about this before, there's going to be a gigantic need for trade people.
Yes, absolutely.
So electricians, plumbers, carpenters, we still need those people.
We do.
Now, I think those people are on the, not the actual electrician who does the work because he gets paid a lot of money, but, some of the apprentice jobs, they don't get paid and it's tough work. But there could be a way with artificial intelligence where the they can navigate, they can rewire a certain way, which makes being a tradesperson a little bit more efficient. And therefore, they could probably use a little bit less labor, but on the flip side, make more money and have their job become a little bit easier, than what it is at this point in time. But I think with the demand out there for some of these trades, because nobody wants to do the work anymore, I think that's right for people to move from one position into another. And I was talking to somebody the other day who I think got his degree in philosophy or something like that and wanted to go into sales and did for a period of time. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to be an electrician. And he sees an opportunity there because the sales world where he's at was a little bit saturated. And now he's doing great. He's an electrician.
Yeah, so, I think that's an awesome idea, and we certainly need them.
Here's a hot take on some 50 Cups tea.
Our de-stress tea is great for relaxation as it contains ingredients like chamomile, valerian root, honeybush, and dried orange. Chamomile assists in anxiety as well as the ability to help you fall asleep. Valerian root helps slow down nerve activity, which promotes for anti-anxiety. Honeybush helps calm the central nervous system, and the dried orange replenishes vitamin C reserves as well as reducing cortisol levels.
Visit 50cupstea.com to find out more.
I was thinking about it, Jim. Now even more so, knowing that, this podcast might be in jeopardy. No, I'm teasing. But
just think about and I think New York State prohibits individuals like me I could be wrong on this, so somebody fact check, but I can't use AI to defend myself in a lawsuit. I have to go through an attorney still. So there are already states out there that are protecting
those jobs.
Yes, those jobs, right. And I'm thinking to myself, how fair is that for a low-income person who, through no fault of their own, let's say, was hit by somebody, they got hurt, and they don't want to give 33% of any type of award to an attorney because they can't afford it.
Right.
They could simply go online and probably defend themselves, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And write a couple letters, crank some things out, and hopefully get a nice settlement without having to pay somebody 33% of it. Now, all the lawyers, especially Harvey that we had on 6 months ago, he might tell you differently. But I'm thinking, how does that helps the little person? And if you're a government, why wouldn't you want to help the little person?
You're right. I think we did a show about this where they talked about really when you have these claims, it's one AI talking to another AI ultimately anyway. But no, that's an excellent point. And states will do that. I think that's what licensing is really all about, protecting those trades. There's certainly a lot of trades that you have to get a license for that, you wouldn't need to. It's a protection thing. But I get a sense that you feel much more comfortable about this. You're a half-full kind of guy on this.
Well, one of the jobs I thought would go away would be the computer coders, the people that write software.
Right.
And they're saying that actually there's going to be more need for coders.
Really?
To continue to code, artificial intelligent programs, to debug them, to monitor them, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought that was a little bit interesting. I think the SaaS, the software for service world, they seem to think that's going to be affected by AI. Right now, you spend a lot of money in companies to, bring in a enterprise package that, has a contact management software, finance software, it all ties in together. Implementation's usually millions of dollars, and then you have to have some consultants maintain that, going forward. So it's a giant money stream for the big five and for other, firms out there. Like Salesforce.com is a big company that's grown because of that. And I think artificial intelligence certainly could reduce a lot of that back office information, spreadsheets, contact management that you're seeing right now. So a lot of companies a lot of forecasters are pretty down on the software for servers models at this point in time.
Well, but like with anything, there's the good and the bad, and hopefully we can filter through it. They had a recent survey. No, the colleges did it. They were allowing their students to use AI to write their papers and take tests even, and they get great grades. And then they gave them a test. without AI, and most of them failed, or I think 64% was the going grade on that. So, you got that too going. We've become so dependent on things that sometimes we forget how to think ourselves. But I'm hopeful too. I hope you're right, Jim. You usually are. So I'm going to feel better about it.
Yeah, I think the danger is because you have a lot of answers at your fingertips that
and they may not be the right answers, though.
May not be,
right?
And you wouldn't know. But then at the end of the day, you're becoming a weaker human being.
Yes, exactly.
You're not resilient, not being able to figure out what's right and what's wrong. So God forbid if somebody pulled the plug and you couldn't get your AI answers anymore, or your phone didn't work, and you're stuck in the middle of nowhere. Like, what are you going to do? How are you going to find where you're going and doing what you're doing?
That's just it. If you ever were able to time travel from this period back, you'd have all these great ideas, phones, and you'd name it. But you wouldn't know how to build it. Therefore, you would remain.
Which reminds me.
Yes.
So this is not little less to do with AI, but more about the internet.
Yes.
How did we get where we were going back in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s?
We made it. There was a lot of, we were able to do it.
But do you remember?
I remember.
Did you have a bunch of maps in your car?
Yeah, we had maps, and I'd be yelled at quite frequently by someone who felt I should stop and ask for directions. But of course, manhood prevented me from doing that. But yeah, that's how we did it. And the phone had a cord. And if you were upper class somewhat in my neighborhood, you had a long cord that could go from one room to another. So it was a completely different lifestyle. And I guess all of us who are older look back on it fondly and say, I think maybe it was a better lifestyle. And I think it was in a lot of ways, but.
Yeah, I remember just booking a doctor appointment or a reservation at a restaurant. You called them up, you got it. And then, hey, where are you located? They give you the address. And then, if you were close enough, you'd say, well, how do I get there from, the center of town? Well, you go to the third stop sign, you take a right, you go up here, go left, and boom, you're right there.
That's right, by the big hill. And there's usually a cow standing by that. By the oak tree there, and you can't miss it.
I just remember driving into New York City, and you knew how to get to New York, and then you just figured it out when you got into the city. And the worst case scenario, to your point, sometimes you had to go into a store or a gas station or see somebody in the street and say, hey, I'm looking for Bloomingdale's. Oh yeah, it's 2 more blocks, take a left, take a right. So you had to talk to humans.
When I first moved to Raleigh, I drove and I got caught on the loop. I couldn't remember where I had to get off, so I got off and asked somebody. Hadn't done that in forever. And I said, am I in Raleigh? Where is it? I couldn't because of the trees. You can't see around here. He said, well, you're in Raleigh. And I was very embarrassed and never asked a person ever since that date. But at that time, if you were going to survive, you had to depend on your skills and other people to be accommodating, right? And now that whole part of humanity, I think we're losing in a way. But I agree, this could be super good.
I think the biggest thing that scares me, and I was listening to this podcast the other day, and he was making the argument that obesity and the unhealthiness of our populace is 10% processed foods and big food, and it's 90% technology.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So the blue light technology is harmful to your health, and all our screens have that. And the glasses that we're supposedly buying to block the blue light really don't block the blue light.
Right.
And then we're doing away with the incandescent light bulb in 2028. So everything that's going to be illuminating is blue light also. And he was saying that is the biggest issue, and your body actually, and we're more of an indoor society now, but your body actually needs sunlight to regenerate mitochondria and to survive and to be healthy. And this blue light basically messes up our cells and saps everything out of us. And as a result, that's why we're getting sicker. That's why we're getting fatter, et cetera, et cetera. Am I allowed to say that word, fat?
Yeah, you can.
Okay,
you can. And I agree. The fact that we're so dependent, we play games indoors, we are on our computers constantly, we're not getting out and doing what we used to do as a kid, ride bikes, go out and play and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't happen anymore.
And so what scares me about AI is, are we going to be more dependent?
Exactly.
Or in a positive way, will AI take that hour-long search and tie it down to 15 minutes, and then suddenly you're off the computer, you're outside, you're walking, hiking, you're playing outside, you're doing whatever you're doing. I think that's going to be ultimately the
earbuds in
question, right?
That's right. Well, I'm sure we'll survive, but it's going to be interesting and kind of exciting. Speaking of exciting, you just got back from Japan.
I did.
So I've never been to Japan. I have my own vision of Japan. I see a lot of fish, a lot of, but I see a lot of healthy people. I see people who actually covet the old and seek their wisdom, at least
kind of like we do.
Kind of like we do on this show from time to time. But what was it like? I mean, in comparison to what it's like here versus going to Japan.
Yeah, so I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound like I'm criticizing the U.S., and I kind of am, but I'm just, it's interesting. And I had been there before, about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, but I got a chance to see it again. I joke when I say this, but I know we won World War II, and the Japanese had to surrender to us after we dropped the bombs, basically. But I think in the long haul, from a society standpoint, they're ahead of us right now.
Yeah.
Every city is immaculate. It's an orderly society. It's a bilingual society. Signage is in English and in Japanese. Every kid that goes to school, they go to school 6 days a week, by the way. And in public school, they wear uniforms in addition to the private schools. So they're really big on education. And they have to learn English and in school. Now, whether they practice that when they get out, I have no idea. It's kind of like our kids learning Spanish, and they don't know how to speak Spanish when they're 25, 26 years old. So unless you immerse yourself in it, I think it's going to be pretty tough. Uber drivers, immaculate cars, drivers wearing suits with white gloves, taxi drivers, suits, white gloves. Every worker is wearing some type of a uniform. So if you're in a restaurant, you can recognize the worker compared to the customer. If they're working in the subway station or wherever they're doing, there's a differential between a worker and a customer. And then for those that are just walking around, not necessarily, in a job per se during the day, they're all dressed appropriately and very professionally, whether they're taking a tour of a park or they're, going shopping or whatever it is. So I thought, and on top of that, wildly friendly. I mean, super nice people. And, we were in Tokyo, we were in Kyoto, we went down to Hiroshima for a day. And then we went up to Hakone to get a glimpse of Mount Fuji. And for whatever reason, Mount Fuji is the top part of the mountain is always covered in fog. And it's hard to get a good glimpse of it. You can get a good glimpse of it if you're on the left side of the bullet train going from Kyoto to Tokyo.
Bullet train, yes.
And, but we drove up. We actually got a glimpse of it for about maybe a minute, and then it got covered up again. So that was kind of cool. But it was a wonderful experience. Food's phenomenal. They have the lowest cardiovascular disease of all the first world countries, mainly because their food is clean for the most part, and it's local. But they eat fried food just like we do. But obviously they eat a lot of more fish than we do. But it was a great experience. I truly, everything was just done really well. And we didn't, go to 5 stars. We stayed in normal hotels just like everybody else. But they're very big on cleanliness. And there's no graffiti, there's no trash flying around the streets. I didn't see any unhoused, quote unquote, people.
Oh yeah.
None of that. I think it's, I'm sure there's crime.
Why is it?
What's the difference? I think they have respect for their society.
All right.
And I think, they have laws. And I'm sure that, the governments and the law enforcement enforce those laws. Whereas, as you know, we don't necessarily do that anymore in our country in certain areas. So it was a great experience. And I get back, and we land in Denver, and we have probably a 20-mile walk from the gate to the customs area. And we get there, and it wasn't crowded, which is good. But global entry's down due to I think it's back up now, but at the time it was down due to the budget, the defunding of parts of the DHS.
Right.
And so they're calling like 7 people at a time to basically get into this elevator. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. Then I realized that the escalator's broke, but nobody's trying to fix it.
Right.
In Japan, that escalator would not have been broken.
Right.
And if it was broken, they would have been fixing it.
Right.
And so it was it just was like, nobody cared. It was just like, all right, 7 more, go downstairs, wait in line, all that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, and then we waited. I did not check a bag. I never check a bag. That's my biggest hot take in life. If I have to, I'll have the hotel do the laundry, but I never check a bag.
Right.
But some family members that we were traveling with, my grandson came, so they had to check a bag. Almost an hour before that baggage claim started spinning around.
Sure.
An hour.
Yeah. See what we grow accustomed to as normal? Was it ever that way? See, I remember things, we weren't as efficient because we didn't have the technology, but there was a certain amount of respect for neighbors, for community, pride. I remember cities would I think they often paid for it to get the America's best city, or, to go for awards and recognition. And certainly the garbage I see on the roadways just in North Carolina is something I would only see if you were to go across the border into Mexico. When I was in Iraq, this just, I don't care where I throw it, it's going to go there. I said, did anybody ever see the crying Indian? I don't think they did, Jim. Right. We had the crying Indian, and it worked. But nobody cares. And if the public isn't going to care, the customer isn't going to care, I guess you get what you get. I wish we could change that. You don't have an answer for that one, but
yeah, we obviously had a big litter problem back in the 70s, and that's where they ran those commercials 24/7, and I think that helped build public awareness around cleanliness in the environment, at least. And the weird thing is, we're giant environmentalists in our country. I mean, we love the forests and the mountains and clean water and everything else, but we need to take that one step further, and let's keep our communities clean as well.
Well, you can go to many places, I think in almost any city, literally city, if it's on the way home, it's out the window, and it takes a couple of weeks, and the whole roadway, side of the roadway is just nothing but garbage. And I just don't understand why that happens. And I don't know if it happens more here or not, but it seems to be pretty prevalent here.
Well, here we have like couches on the side of the road.
I
know they fall off a truck, but why wouldn't you stop the truck and go get the couch?
We had a freezer. Somebody threw a freezer off the back of a truck that was loaded full of whatever. And it sat there it wasn't thankfully near me, but on the way home, and it sat there for weeks on the side of the road. And I think you could actually put together an automobile if you collected the parts, taking the loop around Raleigh. It's really it's embarrassing. Yeah. It is. And there was a time most Americans would be embarrassed by that. But
and our public service people they'd be out there cleaning it up. Now they don't.
Yeah. Well,
but I highly recommend that trip if you ever want to go.
I would love to. I think every American should take a trip like that, so they are, because a lot of people don't remember the old days, but seeing what could be versus what we live with would be very.
And the only two negatives, one of them is they love to wear masks over there, which I'm an anti-mask guy. But number two, which is really the most important thing, they have one of the lowest birth rates in the world. So the society that I experienced a couple of weeks ago isn't going to exist in 100 years.
Yeah.
Unless they do something different.
That's true. That's very true. Well, I think I heard President Trump say something about releasing all the info on UFOs.
Oh,
Jim.
yeah. They're not UFOs anymore, Bill. Where are
they're
they?
not. Excuse me. What are they called now, Jim? They're called what? UAPs, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you take this seriously or not? I mean, there's a lot of government officials, documentaries coming out saying, well, this stuff is real, you should see it, and oh my goodness, and yet here we are. I have yet to see any substantial evidence of existed other people visiting us from another planet.
Well, my original hot take on UFO to UAP was the changing of the acronym.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, what's wrong with UFO? Right. And I guess the A word now is
it's aerial anomalous. I'm not very good at pronouncing that.
The anomalous means that, well, we got to worry about unidentified objects in the water, on the land, and in the air. So I guess this is this universal word that I think, other than looking up an artificial intelligence, no one's going to know what it means. So that was my original hot take. And then I thought, weirdly, after I decided I wanted to talk about that, I literally listened to a news update this morning, and there's about 7 or 8 people that have been in the UAP program in the U.S. that have mysteriously disappeared or died in the last 6 months.
That's exactly right.
And they talked about this one guy who was the head of one of the programs in New Mexico. He went out with, according to his wife, backpack a revolver to go for a hike. I don't know why he'd bring his revolver. And he hasn't been seen in months. And then there was a woman who worked for this person in California, and she disappeared. She also went out for a hike one day. And then somebody else, scientist, was found dead. And there was somebody else who was in the same area, but he was more of a biologist, whatever that means, in that line of work. And he was found dead also. So there's like this weird thing that's going on right now.
Well,
did you hear the same thing?
I did. I actually read some of that, and I scratched my head too. And I go, well, you know, there was a time I just ran it off as a conspiracy theory, but I've noticed that conspiracy theories have been coming true on a fairly regular basis over the past 10 years. So I'm not so quick to do that, and can you imagine the impact if the government did say, yeah, this is where our aircraft design came from. We've been reverse engineering. These people have been with us. What that would do to the psyche of the normal walking, talking human being on planet Earth, which may be the reason they're not actually coming out with it, or it doesn't exist at all. But it's darn convincing when you start putting all these little pieces together. It's hard to walk away and say, well, there's nothing here. People still think we didn't land on the moon, too, right? And so I don't know. Yeah. I don't know where it's going. I don't know if Trump's doing it for other reasons or if he'll do it at all. But it would be interesting to take a look at everything they got. I will tell you this.
And he did say he's going to release, correct?
He said he was going to release everything. And Barack Obama was out and said, oh, no, they exist.
Yeah.
He hasn't seen one, but they exist. So
what does that do for you spiritually then?
Well, see, I don't believe they do exist. Okay. I just don't. Because of the science involved to do it, I saw a piece, it was a wonderful piece, and I'm not smart enough to regurgitate it to you, but just from a scientific perspective with what we know, there's just no way you can possibly travel that distance. Unless they figured it out, of course. But spiritually, it would be something that you'd have to reconcile with the Bible because they don't talk about that. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist, I suppose. They just focus on Earth and people, you know. But it would be a life changer, wouldn't it? If you were told, Jim, your next door neighbor's been an alien this whole time. You know, you would. And why would they be here? You know, I don't know. See, there's just too many questions. I'm sorry, I'm rambling because I'm trying to, in my head right now, trying to figure this out. I just don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, my thought process could be totally wrong, but if an alien was able to travel 170 light years to get here, clearly they're way more advanced than we are.
Oh, yeah.
And then how in the world then are we holding them in captivity and learning from them? That part I don't understand.
That is an excellent point. That is like, well, you know, maybe they're more like America versus Japan, and they just didn't care about the equipment on their starship. I don't know. But yes, that's an excellent point. But if you talk to people and read things, I shouldn't say, you read all the articles and you see like the B bombers, whatever they are, the B-2, the big winged bombers, it strangely looks like a lot of the UFO or UAPs now that we've seen in photos from way past. So I don't know. I'll tell you this. I had a man member of the family who was stationed at, is it Area 51? That's the super secret alien base. And he would not answer me. But in his non-answers, he implied that, yeah, it's all real. So, or he was messing with me.
Then you wonder, because you hear, especially when you're talking about the Egyptian pyramids, that there was this way advanced civilization that basically got taken out through either some type of weather event, volcanic, eruptions or something. Otherwise, the pyramids could never have been built by what we thought of was the technology at the time.
Exactly.
In ancient times. And so then now I'm starting to think, well, maybe if they didn't come here from a faraway planet, but they're somehow survived for thousands of years and we found them at the bottom of the ocean or wherever, that's a little bit more explainable to me, which means that from a spiritual standpoint, maybe God erased the previous civilization for whatever reason, and started over again. I don't know. I mean, we can go down a rabbit hole.
Well, that, I don't know. We probably running really long, but the Bible does talk about that in some of the books that didn't make it into the Bible, and it talks about the angels falling angels coming down and mating with women and the Nephilim and all of that. But one of the things they did, one of the big sins was providing technology. And of course, the flood then wiped them out. It's a very short story for a long explanation, but there are other explanations if you want to go. Is that any more far-fetched?
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think, too, it's a matter of if it's gaining any recognition, there's always been a conspiracy theory. Here's one for you. Because we now have the technology with holographic technology to put an invasion from outer space coming down, and you'll look at it in the sky and think, hell, that's real. And it might be a way of controlling all of us. Who knows? It could very well be.
We're going deep right now. We're going deep.
I'm going to have to check out AI when I get home and ask him these questions and see what he comes up with. But wow, we haven't gotten together in a while. Either that or I've just...
It's been a while. We've been trying to get a guest
for
a long time, and unfortunately we were unsuccessful.
Yeah, this last time was it would have been a great one.
I'll be loading you up with some guests in the next 2 or 3 segments that we do.
Beautiful.
So, but as always, it's great to talk to you.
Yeah, and I don't even miss the tea, Jim. I don't even miss it. But
You're a coffee guy anyhow.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to the upcoming podcasts, and we appreciate everybody viewing.
Yeah, have a great day.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Bye.
Thanks for joining us on Hot Takes 50 Cups. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to visit our website at 50cupstea.com for more great content and delicious organic teas, and listen and watch us on all the leading platforms. Stay connected with us on Instagram at 50cupstea, YouTube, and TikTok. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends. Until next time, keep sipping and stay united.